everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I'm once again your host, Christa Gurka, and we've got a really cool episode today, although I think I say that at the beginning of every episode. But this one is entitled Your Best Instructor Just Quit. Now what? And this can go for your best PT, your best admin person, your best Pilates instructor, your best yoga instructor. Now what? Now what do you do? Well, step number one is I want to say we don't panic. We don't panic. Okay. In the words of Marie Forleo, everything is figureoutable. Okay. Every problem has a solution. The solution may not be your ideal solution, but every problem has a solution. So in today's episode, we're discussing a situation most of us dread, right? Losing our star team member, our star practitioner, our star instructor. And how can we turn these challenges into an opportunity for growth? And I really think that, I mean, that's so cliche, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. But I think with every situation, we certainly can learn something from it in an effort to do better or do differently next time or be better prepared. Okay. So let's talk about, that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get into it. So you get that text or that Slack message or that email that says, "Hey, do you have a minute to chat? I'd like to chat with you about something." Or, "Can I get some time with you tomorrow?" And the first thing, at least for me, this was the first thing that comes to my head is they're going to quit. They're going to quit. Okay. So the first thing is let's have a respectful conversation with these people. Um, Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes it's just as difficult for them, especially if they've been with you for a long time. And this might be very emotional for them as well to be putting in their notice. I think it's important that we create a culture and an understanding of how the hiring process works so that most often people are not giving you just 2 weeks notice, but maybe they're giving you a month's notice, or maybe someone's moving and they can give you 2 months notice. So maybe they've understood in your culture that 2 weeks is not very much at all, especially in our businesses. So let's actually let's go back to someone's giving you 2 weeks notice, which is, the norm, respectful, professional, I believe. The first thing we want to do is really ascertain if there is anything you can do to keep this instructor on. Now, sometimes if they're moving or if they're aging out or if they want to decrease their hours or something else, there's not a whole lot that we can do for them to stay. But sometimes maybe it is just $1 more an hour, or maybe it's just a different schedule. So the first thing I would say is if you love this person and you think they really are an asset to your team, not because you're afraid of losing them and what that means for the business, but if you really think this is the person from which your business can grow and it would really affect the culture, et cetera, in your business, maybe there is a way to discuss with them what their goals are. Why are they leaving? Is there something that you can do on your end to make a difference? All right. But let's say there's not. Let's say, someone said to me once, every resignation is a education in how a leader can do better. And I don't believe that. Okay. Sometimes maybe yes, but sometimes it's time for people to move on. And it's not about us. It's about them and their needs and their desires and their future. And the mindset is, you know, I'm lucky that I had this opportunity to be a small part in their professional career and their professional development. Um, that's how we really want to think about these things. So step number one would be to communicate effectively with your team. Rumors start very, very quickly in this industry, especially in small studios. So let's address it with a team so you can control the narrative within the studio. Focus on continuity of care, continuity of service, okay? Be honest if you don't have a transitional plan yet and that you're looking into it, and you'll discuss it with them and decide whether you want people to discuss it with clients yet or not yet, and then ask kindly to respect your decision in that manner. Okay, so let's really develop your client communication and your team communication and how you want to really be the one to control that narrative. Okay. So, in terms of mindset, when someone puts in their notice, I want you to try to think of things kind of like I said, like one, everything is figure outable. Everything is figure outable. You will figure this out. Okay. They're not leaving you, they're pursuing the path they want for their life. It's not about you. Okay. This possibly creates space for new energy, for fresh talent, especially if this person has been around for a really, really, really long time. And I will tell you, everyone, including yourself, by the way, is replaceable. Our business is more than just one person. Everybody is replaceable. Some people are more replaceable than others. Some people are harder to replace than others, but everyone is replaceable. All right. So after we don't panic, or maybe we panic and then we calm ourselves down, okay, and we create a communication plan for both the team and the instructors. The next part is the transitional phase. So, like, what are we going to do to replace this person? The number one thing I would say before you go out and start hiring people is evaluate your current schedule and systems. Consider if you do need to replace this person right away. Consider if you might want to replace this person with two different people. Consider if you want to consolidate some of your classes and create temporary adjustments if necessary. Consider if it's in a downtime, maybe you take some of these classes or close some of these hours off of your schedule until you ramp back up. The next thing I always do and I recommend is evaluate internal promotion opportunities. How can you promote from within? How can you look for rising stars within your current team? And at Pilates in the Grove, we always had people ready to move up into more full-time positions. We were always developing young talent or new talent so that if a more senior person left or someone wanted to cut their hours, we always had a pool of people that was willing and interested and able to move into a more full-time role. If you have to hire someone, if you really need to fill that gap with new blood, then you really want to have developed your hiring strategy before. You want to have a hiring strategy before. You want to make sure that your job descriptions, the requirements for the job are outlined so that you can start recruiting on social media, on Indeed, on LinkedIn, on different other platforms amongst friends. Okay. And it's more when you create a job posting, it's more just about the job responsibilities, but about selling the culture, selling the same way we sell our services to our clients. We want to sell the role, the position to prospective team members because we want the best and brightest to join our teams. So, what does that process look like? How long does that process take? Oftentimes in our industry, it takes a while. Okay. So, what is your hiring process? Is it you do a Zoom screening first or a phone screening? Then you do an in person audition or an in person interview. Maybe you have them shadow for a day. Do you check references? Do you invite other team members to sit in on some of the interviews and speak with this new prospective hire? Um, There is a great module on my website that's everything you need to know about hiring. And if you're interested in learning a hiring process, or if you join our membership, it's only $99 a month, you get that training for free. So if you're interested in doing that, check out my website, christagurka.com/fitbizfoundations. If you join for $99 a month, you get all of these trainings for free. Okay. They also come with our job postings, et cetera, et cetera. But so now, one of the things, again, when we talk about mindset, because a lot of this is our own mindset and the stories we're telling ourselves about having to replace someone. This could be an opportunity to upgrade or to do things differently. Maybe you do find someone that's better suited for the role. Maybe you do find someone that now is willing to work a weekend or has availability to work evenings or take on more classes. Okay. Our community is stronger than just one personality. We have created a trust and loyalty in our brand, in our company as a whole, rather than just in instructors. And if you're not doing that, this is an exact reason why you want to do that, why you want to create a culture and a community of teamwork, of everyone working with all the clients, of this is, Pilates in the Groves clients, not Christa Gurka's clients. And having a diversity in your instructors and your practitioners really enriches all of the offerings you can have within your business. So it's a way for you to have a little bit of a different spin with each of your members. And that way it gives your clients, your customers, your patients more value because you have different people having different expertise. Now, one of the things we discussed earlier, in addition to if you have to go out and find new talent, is always be building a pipeline of new talent, a pipeline of new instructors. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You can technically always be hiring, and I say that in air quotes. So we used to have always like an ad on LinkedIn. When we weren't actively hiring, we had our ad spend down a little bit lower. And then when we were actively hiring, we had our ad set higher. But we were always taking on new resumes. We were always having people reach out to us. We had a work with us link on our website. So we were always basically hiring, even when we were fully staffed. We were always training our current staff. We used to do quarterly peer-to-peer training. We also have continuing education workshops where our staff, our current staff, gets to attend for free. We provide continuing education stipends for our employees so they can go do training to get better at their craft. And also we have an instructor training program. We have a Pilates teacher training program. So we're always, at least we run one a year. So there's always people in this pipeline training to be Pilates instructors. And I think we've hired someone out of each program we've done for the last like 7 or 8 years. So it's great to have, it's the reason most people do teacher training programs is so they can have, it's the best interview process. You have these people learning in your environment, shadowing your instructor, shadowing your policies. And so they're learning for 4 to 5 months already how to do the job. So what greater interview process is that, right? The other thing is, do you see future talent in your clients? Maybe there's a client that would be a great admin person. Maybe there's a client that would be a fabulous instructor. Okay. Maybe there's a client that you think would be fabulous or someone else and you can give them a scholarship to go through the teacher training program. So the way that you want to think about this, if we bring it back to your mindset, is you're always developing and upgrading your team, not upgrading them as individuals, but you're always developing them, not just hiring them. Your talent development, your professional development is ongoing, rather than being reactive. Now, I know you say some people are like, well, what if I spend all this money to train people and they leave and go somewhere else? Well, what if you don't spend any money to train them and they suck and they stay with you forever? That's not good either. So again, if you create an environment where people feel valued, where people feel like they're leveling up, where they're getting better, they are in the end most likely to stay. All right. Remember, abundance mentality beats scarcity thinking. There's enough business to go around for all of us, especially in your own community where people can be shared amongst different instructors. Now, let's talk about how you can retain top talent so that if somebody leaves, you don't feel like the rug just got ripped out from under you and you are going to have a heart attack. So, kind of like I said, people love to be valued. So, if you invest in your team, they will in turn usually invest in you. So, how can we invest in our team? We can meet regularly with them to see how they're doing. We can provide continuing education or in-house training for them, host workshops, bring people in to train. You can do it yourself as the owner if you see fit that you're able to do that kind of training quarterly or twice a year. You can do it on like a Saturday or a Sunday. All right. You can provide continuing education stipends. Like, I think we do over $2,000, but you could even start with $500. $500 a year, they can go take a course and learn and get better. It behooves you as an owner, it behooves your clients, and it behooves them. How can you develop clear growth pathways for your team? How can you establish how people can move up the ladder? How can you create mentorship programs for the newer instructors to learn from the more senior instructors and get better so that if a senior instructor leaves, this other person is ready to fill in already? Then, competitive compensation. And I know that this is a tough time in the market and in the industry. At Pilates in the Grove, we had instructors that were making high five, six-figure salaries. So upwards of $90,000. And didn't happen overnight. And I do have competitive wages, and we still are able to do that with a six-figure profit. Okay. So we've just developed a plan, a culture that we are Pilates and Grove as a brand. People come to us for the brand. Nobody's clients are their clients, even mine, even Christa Gurka, like they're Pilates and the Grove's clients. They're not Christa Gurka clients. They're not Sandy's clients. They're not Jane's clients. They're the company's clients. And it's important to remember that because people will come for the exercise, but they stay for the community. And the more you create that kind of culture, it helps prevent that shock if somebody does leave, because people won't likely leave to follow that instructor because they've built a brand and loyalty to you as a business, as a community, and the people that are in that community. Okay. There's also ways, like I said, to create competitive compensation that are non-monetary, like continuing education, like the flexibility to have, a flexible schedule, like the flexibility to be able to take vacation, to have enough of a team where they can get coverage if they want to go out of town, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're creating more than just a job environment. We're creating a community. And if we want our staff, our team to be loyal and growth minded for us, we have to do the same in return. We have the responsibility to create a situation where this is a career for them, because it's a career for us. Business ownership, maybe at the beginning, is a side hustle. But if you're talking about getting to six figures and paying yourself six figures, like it's a full-time job, as it should be. And we want to create full-time jobs for instructors. It does exist. It can happen, and you have the power to create that. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen if you have the right goals, and everything you do, every step you take gets you closer to that goal. So while losing your star instructor or practitioner is scary and definitely sucks and is a shock, some turnover from time to time is healthy. It's normal. People are going to leave. They will. People will age out of teaching, right? People will have babies and decide they don't want to come back to work. People will move, their partners will get a job, or maybe they want to move back, maybe they have kids, they want to move back closer to family. There's all sorts of reasons why people leave. And embracing a cycle of change where, we think of like every ending creates a new beginning. Every time a door closes, a window opens. All of these kind of things um, help us grow in this industry. So I hope that this episode made you realize, yes, while it does suck to lose your best practitioner, and it just is like, oh my gosh, I have this other thing on my plate. What am I going to do? How am I going to handle it? It could also be an opportunity for some change, an opportunity for some growth. And if you have that feeling of, oh shit, what the fuck am I going to do now? Then maybe this time you start to create a plan so that the next time this happens, it doesn't crush you, right? Maybe start building this pipeline of always be hiring. Start interviewing people, even if you're not hiring. Set in a system where you don't have a schedule that's completely dependent on one person. So for example, when I started building my schedule, I didn't like people teaching more than 2 classes in a row. So why was that? Why? Because if they leave or they call in sick, it's really hard to replace someone if everyone else is working and there's no one else there at that time. So the way that I developed my schedule was you can do 2 classes, then you can do a private or 2 privates, and then you could do 2 classes again. So and people would be like, well, isn't that cost ineffective? I was like, no, because if God forbid this person that has 2 classes gets sick, there's another person doing privates at that time or is at the studio around the same time and can hopefully cover for that person. So I was always thinking, it's part of probably my anxiety and my overthinking was, how can I create a problem? How can I create a solution to a problem? Now, some people might be like, well, you're creating a solution to a problem that's not necessarily there. But for me, it helped me sleep at night because if I did get that phone call, like, Janet is sick, I'd be like, oh, Jane's there at the same time. Jane can cover those classes. So how can you create, if it does bother you, um, try to set it up differently so that the next time it happens and that you are not beholden on one specific person. And in the end, I want you to remember that the strength of your business isn't in any one individual instructor. It's not even in you as an individual. It's in the community and experience that you've built together and that you provide to your customers that will get people to keep coming back. All right. So I know this is something you've all experienced. And if you haven't, you probably will at some point, unless you are a solo practitioner and it's just you. But I'd love for you to share with me, maybe over on Instagram, if you want to DM me or let me know what your thoughts are about when your best instructor gives their notice or if they're going to leave and how you maybe handled that in the past or what you're scared about if that happens now in the future. Go ahead and DM me over on Instagram at Christa Gurka. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, my friends, bye for now.